Hi, um, I'm Josh Dolitsky, and this is my presentation hosting a chart repository with ChartMuseum. A little bit about me. I'm the creator and primary maintainer of open source project ChartMuseum. I'm the engineer at CodeFresh, who's one of the sponsors today. This is like my 5th day on the job, so I can try to answer questions as best I can. I have a lot of background in building out build automation systems, doing things with Jenkins and Git event streams, things like that. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I have this giant Chicago-style hot dog on the screen, but I actually like my hot dog ketchup only. So probably be arrested at O'Hare when I get back. So a little bit about ChartMuseum. Really simply, it's just a web server that follows the chart repository guide that the Helm team put up in their documentation. It has a little bit, it has some more features that I'll go into detail about. But at the core, it's just a web server that provides an index YAML, which is the manifest of all the charts that are available in the repository. It also serves packaged chart tarballs, and optionally also provenance files, which you can store right next to the tarballs, and these are used for integrity and signing. So what's the problem? Why did I create ChartMuseum? What does it do? Why do we need it? The problem here is, and Rod was talking about this a little bit earlier, but how do multiple developers or multiple teams release their charts at a single time, so in parallel? If you're working on, if you have a giant Uber chart or you just have a single team, this might not be a problem for you, but at my last job, we had several different Java-based teams that had their own Helm chart, needed to push to a repository for the ops guys to access, and this was a really big problem. So here's a diagram that kind of shows, I don't know if I'm in the way here, that kind of shows like a example workflow for two different Helm charts. So you have Team A, Team B, Chart A and Chart B respectively. So you can see like above the red line, this is an example if you're using S3 bucket to host your repository, which many people do. So you package your chart, and in the meantime, other teams packaging their chart, and you upload yours, and they upload theirs, and at that point, there's no issues. When it turns into an issue is when you're modifying the index YAML file. So you can see, like on the left, or on the left, you're downloading the current version of index, and then you're doing a repo index merge. There's other ways to do this also, but say you're just basically trying to add your new version to this YAML file, and then you're uploading it back to S3. So if you have somebody who's doing that at the exact same time, or more than two, you're going to end up with a repository index that's missing one or more charts, which is a bad thing. So the solution is ChartMuseum, and what it is just a web server that sits in front of your S3 bucket or in front of your storage medium, and acts as the the piece that your Helm CLI will interact with. So I'm going to talk a little bit about all the different features that ChartMuseum has. So primarily, provides a dynamic repository index. If you start up the ChartMuseum server, pointing to a storage bucket or a directory on your server, it will automatically generate that index based on the packages in storage. If you remove, add, update a package, it will be reflected in that index immediately. So even if you're going into S3 console and saying delete package, the next time a client says Helm repo update, you're going to see that package removed from available packages to install in your cluster. What else? Oh, so one of the things that's interesting is it provides relative URLs in the index. So you could run this behind multiple different host names, and it just says something like charts/mychart.tgz, and the Helm CLI knows just use the host name that you provided. And yeah, you don't have to run this Helm repo index command, which is the core of a lot of race conditions. If you did have an index YAML from before, if you're migrating to this, it'll just basically be ignored. And another interesting thing is that it's generated using Helm itself. So we're in a really good position for if Helm upgrades the format of this file, we just upgrade to the new version of Helm, and we have index YAML as Helm CLI expects. In addition, we talked about S3. There's multiple different options for storage. So you can, the most basic is a local directory on your file system, which can obviously be used with something like EBS, something like that. Amazon S3, you can also use Minio server by, we have a flag for changing your S3 endpoint. Google Cloud Storage, and more recently Azure. And we even actually 2 or 3 days ago have a PR for Alibaba. So look out for that. So in addition to being a Helm repository that works with the Helm CLI, I decided to add extra functionality for uploading charts or describing information about charts, deleting charts. So this really gives you the ability to use ChartMuseum to manage the entire life cycle of your chart. So yeah, you basically just do a curl post to API charts with your newly packaged chart, and it ends up in storage and in your index YAML immediately. Just a little bit about the journey of the project. I had been working on this for several months over the summer. Finally, I decided it was ready to share with everybody. Put it out early morning, September 19th. You know, I put like a link in Hacker News and thought it would just be, you know, super popular. And then I was like starting to get depressed like later in the day, like why is no one using this? Like I spent so much time, like, and you know, in Chicago, like summertime, it's like you don't have a lot of it, so I like wasted all this time. But no, so then around like 3:30, somebody in, I was like a hawk in the Helm users Slack channel, and somebody mentioned CI/CD. And so I used that as like a segue to say, so CI/CD, we created ChartMuseum, and ended up being a really good time to post it. I got 4 of the little parrot guy emojis, so you know anything more than 1 is a big deal. And then the next day, this Butcher guy comes in and and tweets out the link and caused a little miniature internet explosion. And people were saying, "Oh, this is awesome." So I was really happy because I knew, like, when I was working on this, I'm telling my friends who aren't developers, like, I really think this is gonna like solve an issue like that's for like a very niche group of people, and I'm glad that there was at least a few people that found it really useful. So since then, it started off in my own account. It's now part of the Kubernetes Helm Incubator right next to Monocular. Last I checked this morning, 226 stars. We have 14 different releases. I try to release pretty regularly. We have 11 contributors, which is amazing. We have guys from Rod's team, actually, David and Christian, who did a lot to support the caching of the index. So they did a lot to make sure that there's no race conditions. We also have people from SUSE, IBM, all sorts of places, CloudBees. It has over 10,000 pools on Docker Hub. I don't know if that means anything. There might be people just downloading it all day. I don't know. And we actually have our own channel on Kate Slack, so if you want, you can come join us and talk about like really fun stuff. And yeah, it's used by companies big and small all over the world. I've been talking to people from England and West Coast, and you know, it's been really exciting to get to know some of you guys and work on this project. So I'm gonna, what are we on time? So I'm gonna do a little demo. Feel free at any time during this to like ask questions. I just wanted to be kind of open-ended. Oh. All right, so what I have right here is 3 different browser tabs open to 3 different cloud providers, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. So here's like an S3 bucket that has the latest versions of Kafka and Zookeeper charts. And okay. So I don't know if I'm going to try and show you how to install here. The internet's pretty slow. But to install ChartMuseum, I'm releasing every commit to master to my S3 bucket. So you just curl it similar to Helm or kubectl, put it in user local bin. So I showed you that S3 bucket with Kafka and Zookeeper. So to point to that bucket, you will run ChartMuseum storage equals Amazon, and then any information that that storage provider, so it's pretty much the way it is you say storage provider, and then there's a bunch of different required extra parameters. So if I start this guy up, I have tabs, sorry guys. So it starts by looking at your storage bucket. I think the internet is really pretty slow. And first thing it does is tries to generate that that index file. So there's it downloading Zookeeper, taking its time. So, while that's loading, I have another bucket in Google Cloud with, I put the last 3 versions of Artifactory Chart. And then in Azure, I have the ChartMuseum chart. So you can actually, if you look in the Incubator repository, ChartMuseum has its own chart, which allows for all the different storage options. So let's see. Oh, okay. All right, so ChartMuseum started port 8081. So if I do a Helm repo add, we'll call it ChartMuseum S3. So that is adding the ChartMuseum server as a local repository. When I downloaded the index YAML, you can see it logged that request. One thing to note is that every time it's requested, it's checking the storage bucket and saying, does the list of these charts match what's in the cache? In this case, nothing's changed, so we do nothing. So now if I do Helm search CMS3, you see you have Kafka and Zookeeper in there. From there you can do Helm install, Helm fetch, whatever you need to do. So this is running against Google Cloud bucket. So I wanted to show like you can have different versions of the chart. Added all 3 of them. Similar to before, I think I put this on a different port. Yep, thanks. Oh. And I forget the flag, I think it's -L, yeah. So yeah, it's going to be the same for Azure. I could show you just to prove it. So there you go. You can also, I have this mirror directory. Oh my God. It basically, I've downloaded everything from Stable and Incubator. So this might actually be a really cool use case for people who don't want to rely on the Google API endpoint to always be up in their network, although it probably usually is. But so you can actually run ChartMuseum as a mirror to Stable. And there you can see it added literally thousands of packages concurrently. We can just call this mirror. and that's going to look just like stable. Really quick, I'll show you. So, all right, so I have this my chart, which is just the dumbest chart ever, has a pod. If I package this as a, oh no. I had no one to tell me. All right, so created a tarball there. What I can actually do is, without stopping the running process, I can copy that into the directory that ChartMuseum's looking at. And then just got this new Mac with the keyboard. Oh yeah. So again, remember when you add a repo, it has a local index. So you actually need to do a Helm repo update, and that's retrieving the index again from the remote and putting it local. And you can see the flow of this. So the incoming request, I'll make this a little smaller. Incoming request for index YAML, it tries to fetch the list of charts from storage, which is everything in that mirror directory, and it decides there is a diff, regenerates index YAML, grabs the new, here, so here's the line adding chart to index, and index YAML generated, and this is all done like in a mutex, so it should be safe. And how are we on time? We got a few minutes. That's pretty much it. You can remove it also. There's also, I talked about that REST API, so you can, I think I had, all right, I'm gonna run the S3 again. All right, so really quick before I run out of time here. So this is the resulting thing, is it's just curling that package to URL/API charts. And if I run that, and I do a Helm repo update, you'll see that that's added to the index. And then if I refresh my bucket, I promise you it's there. And there it is, yeah, okay. So that's ChartMuseum. Really quick, I'm gonna head back to the presentation. So exciting announcement actually that we made yesterday, CodeFresh, which is the first CI/CD platform for Kubernetes and container native applications. We are working on a project to provide hosted managed Helm chart repositories as part of the platform. So all powered by ChartMuseum. So this is really good news for CodeFresh, really good news for the community, really good news for the open source project. going to be working a lot to upstream changes back to the community version, and I'm expecting a lot of exciting stuff in the next few weeks or few months. And we have actually, we have a link. If you go to codefresh.io, codefresh.io/helm, you can put in your email, and we'll send you an email when we have something for you to play with. That's pretty much it, and thank you. Let me know if there's any questions right now. Go ahead.
So what you're doing when you update the index is you're actually waiting for a request for the index to come in, and then you're doing essentially a diff and updating on the fly while the request is pending. Have you noticed anything that would lead to concerns about, for example, if you had a whole bunch of stuff that needed to update to create the new index, is it possible that that request might time out, or that if you had a lot of requests coming in, there might be?
Yeah, so actually the initial version of the project had this issue a lot. The guys from Ubisoft added a lot of really cool Go code to manage the requests in a way so they don't cause any sort of timeouts. We were seeing like a bunch of requests to S3 building up. And what they did is they made it so if things are incoming and something else is happening, those are kind of like squashed into one check of the bucket as opposed to like 100. So, but yeah, I mean you're right. There's definitely some issues with maybe tens of thousands of charts.
So if you have a lot of requests coming in, then say the last 99 might get a version that's not necessarily up to the microsecond, but within the last second or two at least.
Yeah, I mean, a second maybe. Yeah. Yeah, I'm interested to talk to some of you guys about what do you think we should do to kind of solve this problem long term. Maybe introduce a database or something. But right now it's really simple. You can just point to your storage and it just works.
We have time for one more question.
Hi, thanks. I'm fairly new to managing a chart repository, but I basically assumed that maybe the thing that was done, or a thing that's commonly done, was just tracked my index YAML alongside my Git code, basically the rest of the project code.
Sure.
And then basically that's how, well, I would assume that any sort of contention or race conditions like you described earlier would be resolved just by normal git commit merging. Is that, and then of course this is hosted on github.io basically, statically. Is that not commonly done? I really didn't really.
I can't really speak to that. I think it is. I mean, I think a lot of people use GitHub. I think like, I think that, and I'm kind of under the opinion that Git should be, like once you're running in like Jenkins or CI, I don't think you should be really relying on Git to get things. I mean, it depends all on your workflow, right? But I think it's really nice to have packaged versions available in an artifacts repository. Yeah, it's kind of like what works for you. I think when you get to the scale of multiple charts, merging that might become an issue, and you may not want to like open a code review for that type of thing, like, and you also may not want to just straight push it up, but it's certainly something you could do.
All right, thanks.
Good. Thanks, everybody.